The Aldor and Scryer reputations are involved in a faction alignment system that players have been begging for an evolution of during the recent years of WoW. This loyalty option is one of the highlights of an expansion, but the impact of your choice may surprise you. Hello and welcome, I am Zabraxi. First and foremost, I need to get this out of the way for this video. While I was trying to refresh my memory on this topic and all of the nitty-gritty details of Aldor and Scryer, I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and awkwardly, like 90% of them made a comment in the beginning of the video talking about how bad everyone else's video on the topic was. So, as is tradition, my video's good, and yours is less good. Got 'em. During your leveling journey, you'll eventually stumble upon the capital known as Shatrath City. After speaking to the haggard war veteran near the center, you'll be asked to speak with a doll, and then finally choose your allegiance to the Draenei Aldor or the Blood Elven Scryers. If you're looking for a serious TLDR, then here's how this choice goes. In the short term, there's a slight impact based on your choice, but in the long term, it's practically negligible. This is in fact one of the greatest aspects of the choice between the Aldor and Scryer, since a quote-unquote incorrect choice is only as incorrect as less than 0.5% in most cases, and only for Phase 1. Maybe even half of Phase 1. Blizzard may have painted the Covenant system as the same thing as Aldor and Scryer, but yeah. As a Fire Mage, having Night Fae be like 30% better than Necrolord is definitely not equivalent to the Aldor and Scryer choice. Let's assume you know nothing of these two factions, and we'll highlight some of the key points you should be aware of before making this choice on each character. First, I want to go over some results of your decision that won't have too much impact at all. Despite the fact that I see profession rewards brought up everywhere on this topic, honestly, it doesn't matter much at all. The recipes that you can purchase are all BOP, but the items that you craft for each recipe, they're BOE. There are slight differences, such as the Aldor being able to craft fire resistance gear and the Scryer being able to craft arcane resistance gear, but again, the actual crafts are BOE, so you're not locked out of the armor from the opposite choice. The same goes for the tailoring spell threads. While Aldor tailors can make the healing thread and Scryers can make the caster DPS thread, this functionally doesn't actually matter. The only recipe that doesn't have an equivalent opposite faction is that the Scryers get an alchemy recipe, whereas the Aldors do not. Scryer alchemists can craft the elixir of major firepower, which, while good, is a very niche market in the buyers that you're going to be getting, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the elixirs can be purchased and traded anyway. One of the things that genuinely surprises me, though, is how many other videos spend genuine time and energy talking about the elevator heights. Yes, the Eldor Rise is higher, and if you jump off it, you die. If you jump off the Scryer one, you don't die. I guess you know which one to pick now? When it comes to the reputation rewards that are granted by each of these factions, the value of these items tends to be a bit overstated. Quite honestly, almost all of these items will be replaced by the end of Phase 1, so the gear is only really to help benefit your pre-raid gearing. Also, many of the worthwhile items are rewarded from being exalted. Obtaining exalted with each faction is no quick task, especially if you're Aldor. With that in mind, let's take a quick look at some of the items of note. If you're a Fury Warrior or Rogue, then the Vindicator's brand from the Aldor is an incredibly powerful and worthwhile piece of gear. The hit rating, speed, and attack power is very strong. Arguably, an item like Blink Strike is better, but that will be very costly and very rare. This sword will be replaced by the end of Karazhan with the Spite Blade from Netherspite, though. On the Scryer's side, we have the Retainer's Blade for the rogues out there. A lot of you chuckled at me when I said in my previous video that I planned to go out and beat people on the meters as a dagger rogue in TBC, and well, this is one of those items that'll help me down that path, hopefully to success. Yeah, I know it's an uphill battle, but it's a challenge I think I'll find fun. The Auchenai Staff and the Seer's Cane are... they're fine. I think they're genuinely underrepresented, though. For most caster DPS, the only better staff is Tarok's Shadow Staff and Atiesh. The Seer's Cane is also fine for healers. Now, granted, main hand and offhand combos are generally better for pre-raid gearing, so don't go picking Scryer for this staff alone. The armor rewards can definitely be worth trying to grab. Let's do Aldor first. The Light Warden's Band is a decent ring to get physical DPS players started, but it can be bested by quest rewards. The Medallion of the Lightbearer is, well... The real Aldor armor that steals the show, though, is the Vindicator's Hauberk. If you checked out my quests worth doing video, which you should totally do by hitting the card above, then you'll know that the insane chest from the quest Forge Camp Annihilated is really freaking good. Well, this chest is actually superior for both Paladin and Warrior. Is it worth choosing this faction for? No. The difference is still incredibly small, and the quest chest can easily get you into heroic dungeons and Kaichan. Oh, and then there's the Anchorite's robes. You can tell how good it is by me forgetting that it existed. Let's check out the Scryer rewards now. The Retainer's leggings, well, they exist. Gauntlets of the Chosen are incredibly powerful tanking gloves. 35 defense rating is nothing to ignore. The choice between this and the Vindicator's hauberk from Aldor, that's incredibly tough. There are alternatives for both, but their respective defense values are insanely high relative to other rewards. Dungeon Set 3 options for both Paladin and Warrior are arguably better since you can make up for the lower defense with gems, so I wouldn't let yourself get too hung up on which to pick based off these two items alone. The Seer Signet is good. It's not great, but it's good. In most cases, you'll still be chasing after hit rating, and by the time that you aren't, well, you'll have better rings than Seer Signet. The Cenarian Expedition Exalted Ring, Ashen's Gift, is worth spending your efforts getting exalted to since over 1.5% hit is, well, it's incredibly worthwhile during Phase 1. Finally, there's the Scryer's Blood Gem. Yeah, this is the reason that if you're a caster DPS, then you go Scryer, according to many people. This trinket is impressively strong, and it will honestly live in your bags throughout almost all of TBC. It's not going to be equipped at all times, but if you replace an item and then you end up needing hit rating, it's such a powerful tool to be able to swap in. On my time playing a Warlock during TBC and live, this item didn't go into my bank until Wrath of the Lich King. Some of you might be wondering why a revered or an exalted item. I might make a mention about the fact that the item might not be worth it even though it's clearly good, and that's just because that grinding the reputation and getting to exalted is not a quick process. It's also not an equal process across each faction. One of them is faster by a lot. Do I need to bring up the elevators again? To put it politely, farming reputation for Aldor is much more limited, and it will take longer than grinding out rep for Scryer. A very efficient way to earn rep with these factions is via some specific drops. These would be the Marks of Sargeras and Fell Armaments for Aldor, and the Sunfury Signets and Arcane Tomes for Scryer. These items can drop from loads of different mobs, but the most efficient farms favor the Scryer here. For the Aldor, your most efficient and reliable farm would be from the Shadow Labyrinth dungeon. For Scryer, you have the Black Temple Terrace AoE farm, the Mechanar, and the Botanica dungeon. Again, there are other ways to farm these items, but these are the most popular, and you see that the Scryer has they have some more options. Also, some interesting stats here from WoW Wiki, but the WoW homepage at one point mentioned that the Sunfury Signets were looted twice as often as Marks of Sargeras, and the Arcane Tomes were looted 84% more than the Fell Armaments. You can use this to your advantage, though, to make some money, but just keep that in mind. There are also different quest rewards depending on whether you choose Aldor or Scryer. Granted, these differences are not very common, and honestly, the power of these means almost nothing. Of all the quest reward differences, there only exist about a handful of real choices. Shutting down Manaforge Ara rewards Karja's Medallion and the Overseer's Signet for Aldor, and the Manastorm Band and Thelodian's Charm for Scryer. Yeah, these items are actually pretty good, and if you do really care about your pre-raid bis gearing, then definitely look into these items, as something like the Thelodian's Charm is arguably pre-raid best in slot. Light Warden's Girdle from the Aldor quest Deathblow to the Legion offers an incredibly powerful, almost pre-raid bis protection paladin belt. I don't know why I'm out of breath on that one. The only other item worth mentioning is also called the Sakrathar's Guard from the Scryer quest Turning Point. This item is very strong for an agility DPS wearer, but as I've said several times in this video, there exist better alternatives, in this case from heroics. Speaking of quests, something I don't hear people mention that often is that you can actually swap your allegiance if you don't like your choice. The fact this option existed was a really strong push to give players leverage to request a similar choice in the Shadowlands Covenants, considering that originally in the alpha, you would be locked no matter which covenant you chose originally. If you wish to change from Aldor or Scryer, then you must find Arcanist Adria in the lower city and repeat her optional quest quite a few times to grind some materials until you reach neutral with the Scryer, and then you can make your change. If you're looking to join the Aldor instead of the Scryers, then you can find Shanir in the lower city and repeat a similar quest, just slightly different rewards, and you do the same until you reach neutral with the Aldor. Now, the real reason you've probably picked this video is because you want to know about the shoulder enchants. In fact, that's probably the largest reason why anybody chooses to engage in information about the Aldor and Scryer choice. And, well, as is tradition for the Aldor and Scryer, the difference is minimal, like incredibly minimal. I'm talking less than 1% in most cases small. Actually, less than 0.1% in some cases. But if you really want that 0.1%, the greater inscriptions finally open up, and we now have an opportunity to go over some options about what you should look for and what you might want to pick. For tanks, we have the choice between the greater inscription of warding and the greater inscription of the knight. If you want to ensure you always have that slight extra amount of defense, then Scryer is your choice. If you want the better choice long term, then the extra dodge is slightly more valuable. By slightly, I mean insanely slightly. Even past defense cap, the defense stat itself can still offer some increased avoidance, so being over isn't innately bad. However, the difference between dodge and defense equates out to roughly 0.003 per 1 point in favor of dodge. So yeah, the Aldor shoulder enchant is better, but it's by a whopping 0.015 avoidance. If you're feral, then the dodge may see more usefulness, but if you're not, then it genuinely doesn't matter. If you're a healer, the choice is pretty easy, actually. The Aldor Greater Inscription of Faith tends to win out against the Scryer Greater Inscription of the Oracle in basically every scenario. However, the difference is almost negligible, and your choice of faction allegiance may end up based on what your off-spec choices might be as well. For DPS, this might be a bit more complicated. Casters can choose between the Greater Inscription of Discipline or the Greater Inscription of the Orb. To keep it simple, what you want to do is get a list of your stat weights and choose whichever provides the larger increase to your most important stat weight available. For example, Shadow Priests gain almost no value from crit, so going Aldor would be best. For Mage, spell damage is a higher stat weight than crit, except for fire, so Aldor is superior in 2 of the 3 Mage specs. However, keep in mind the other rewards and options above. Again, Scryer's Blood Gem is not something to shake a stick at, even though the Arcanist Stone trinket does exist and can serve as a good backup in case you do go Aldor. Balanced Druid and Warlock are in a similar boat, where the Aldor insignia is better overall than Scryer, but the Blood Gem again is something you have to consider. Elemental Shaman gains a very high value from Critical Strike, so Scryer wins hands down for this spec. The melee enchants are the Greater Inscription of Vengeance and the Greater Inscription of the Blade. For Rogue, it genuinely doesn't matter basically at all. In fact, Might of the Scourge from Sapphiron is technically still your best in slot by an almost forgettable margin. Enhancement Shaman can benefit from Critical Strike, so Scryer tends to edge out just barely. Feral Druid seems to be insanely close again, but from what I've read, Critical Strike and Attack Power are practically equal for Cat DPS, so I guess pick what you want. Retribution Paladins and DPS Warriors tend to have a Scryer edge out, it's just slightly, like very slightly. Finally is Hunter, and this one can be a bit tricky, but it slightly favors Scryer. Kind of. If your BM and the fights are short, then Aldor is a better pick. However, the increased crit from Scryer can yield you more mana return from talents and keep you out of Aspect of the Viper, which is a DPS increase. Survival Hunters, though, want to be Scryer 100%. There's no argument there. Critical Strike is literally everything to them, so anything that gives crit is what you want. Heck, arguably being Troll for Survival is debatably better than Orc in TBC, to put it into perspective, because of how the bow specialization change occurs. So that sums up the shoulder enchants and most of what I have to say on the topic. Now, before anyone points it out, yes, I left out the necklaces. There's 2 reasons. One, they're not going to come out until Phase 5 anyway, so if you do basically any rating, they're gonna not matter. And 2, the information and the data, the details about these necklaces and their proc effects, it's so all over the place that actually trying to come to a definitive answer of which one is better or not, it's so difficult and practically impossible with what we know. So that's that. But I know some of you are gonna want an actual answer, so let me just say this out here. For what we know, Aldor seems to win. I guess that makes up for the elevator. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you agree or disagree with something that I said, please let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, can you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button? I'd appreciate that. If you thought the video sucked, hit the thumbs down button. That's rude, but I'll take it. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch and Twitter. The live stream have been a blast to do with you guys. And some of the people in the community, actually one member in particular, for example, Weefy, if you're here, shout outs to you. Like the last live stream, we spent probably about an hour trying to figure out the details of a particular item. So that was fun because knowing that information would have changed the way you would approach gearing for certain classes like Enhancement Shaman. And we think we found the answer, which will come in a video soon enough. So thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. You all the best, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!